Welcome to bullet sorting part 2, where we weight sort projectiles. Previously we length sorted them, and I have the batch from that right here. We're going to sort them by weight. Now, I've previously sorted these type of projectiles, so I know that they fall into a number of ranges, and I actually have boxes with each of those weight distributions on them. And I batch by 0.04 of a grain, but I don't batch straight into the boxes. Once again, I've got my plastic cups. I've got my Aculab scale here. It's already calibrated, ready to go. So it's just a matter of getting into it and seeing what we end up with. So I'm going to pull the projectiles out. Just sit them in the bag at the front. They're already clean. So it's just ready to go. And I tend to do this with the lid down on the Aculab scale. Just because I don't have drafts that I have to deal with, and the hole sort of helps. Now, I tend to find that there's a little bit of drift when I do this, but because of the ranges, I'm not going to get drift outside of more than effectively 1 cup's range. So at worst I've got probably 0.06 or 0.08 variation from 1 cup to the next, or within a cup, and yeah, I'm more than happy with that. So there's really not much to this. There's no sort of tricks to it, unless you talk about having to deal with the electronic scale. Sometimes it needs zeroing because it doesn't settle down properly. You need to be careful with your air movements, or you can unsettle it, and just to annoy me, it doesn't move then. Electronic scales aren't for everyone, but these ones are very, very good. You have to, if you're using electronic scales, you really have to come to trust them. If you've got good ones and they're accurate, then yeah, they're absolutely excellent, because your scores will go up. There's nothing like being able to weigh your powder charge down to a single grain of powder, a single kernel of powder. And we've got a few people in our club that have bought these scales, and their scores have just improved dramatically because of it. So yeah, definitely worth getting scales that will accurately measure down to 0.02 of a grain of powder. And of course, being electronic, they double for reasonably quick batching of things like projectiles and cases. Although I don't weigh cases. Although I know people that weigh primers. So yeah, a bit of everything for everyone. So when it comes to reloading, you really have to draw your own lines. Set your own limits on what you're going to do. But that's one of the good things about it. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to batch projectiles. Don't have to weight sort them. Don't have to weigh your cases. Don't have to weigh primers. There's people that measure the length of primers. There's actual tools to do it. So Here we have one that seems to be quite low, so I'm not going to, well, it won't batch into any of the ones that I regularly typically batch into. I don't know how we get one to be that light, but I certainly won't be shooting it in competition, so just get another cup, put the discards into that. If I get some that are dramatically over, they'll go into the same one, and they'll just be used for plinking, or if we've got visitors that come and they want to use my gear, I'll load ammunition with those for them, because they don't care. Whereas for me, I do care. Definitely not going to use those. Well, here we go with the last one. That's it, they're all done. Turn the scales off. And this is the spread we have. So we've got none in the 79.86 to 79.88 range. We've got 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in this range. Now 10's not nearly, well, it's not enough to do a string of shots with, because we have 10 scoring shots per two-siders, so we'd need 12 minimum for these to be useful. So what I'll do is I'll put them in with my discards, right, and they'll go in the visitor's box. So I won't actually use those at all. Now this one, we've got plenty here, so we've got enough for probably a couple of strings. The 79.98 to 80.00, this one is usually the one that has the most, and the 8002 to 8004 is usually the second most, so these bullets have batched out by weight very consistently compared to previous boxes I've bought. And then you've got a few in the upper range, the 8006 to 8008. Previous batches I've bought have probably had probably 2 or 3 out of 250 that have been bigger than this. I think I got 2 that were like 02 bigger than the high point of this, but that's enough to just include them. So these were actually a lot more consistent in weight than the last few boxes I've got. So whereas they were a lot more consistent in length than the last couple of boxes, it seems they've been the same in weights, and those have lifted their game a bit, although their game's always been pretty good. So that's that. Now I've just got to put them into their respective boxes. Two, three. There's enough. There's not many in this, in the 8006 to 8008 range, but there's enough for one string. So it's definitely worth. I'm not going to put it in the visit a lot. I'll just Now, some people, when they use them, they'll shoot them, well, some people reserve them for different purposes. So they'll keep the heavier bullets for the longer ranges, if they're shooting 800, 900, 1,000 yards. I don't bother doing that. I haven't. It probably makes a difference. I've always believed that bullet weight, the greater the weight, the more sort of inertia, the less buffeting. I do think that makes a difference, but relatively speaking, I don't think there's a big enough improvement to worry about. Although if you were doing long range bench rest or something like that, it's a different kettle of fish because they're shooting a lot more accurately than what we're trying to do at F-class. So for F-class, I'm quite happy with just batching it out like this and using them in order, not worrying about using certain weight projectiles at different ranges. So that's it. I'm signing